The ocean is black. Not the black of night, but a heavy, suffocating black, the kind that swallows sound and light. A destroyer rocks gently on the Gulf Stream, its bow cutting through waves like a knife through cloth. On deck, sailors clutch the rails, eyes wide, ears straining. Every creak of the hull, every whisper of wind feels like a harbinger. Contact! The sonar operator shouts, voice sharp, slicing through the tense air. A blip on the screen. Somewhere beneath the dark water, a Soviet submarine moves like a predator. It is quiet, but in the silence, every second stretches into eternity. The crew holds their breath. Some of them know, instinctively, what a wrong move could mean. The missiles, there are warheads on both sides capable of ending everything, lie hidden beneath the surface. A lieutenant whispers to himself, almost under his breath, "This is it. This is the closest the world has ever come." The captain grips the radio. His knuckles are white. He knows the orders. He knows the rules. One wrong signal, one misunderstood code, one panicked decision, and the world could burn. To understand the dread on that deck, you need to understand what brought the world to this knife's edge. It began in 1945, in a desert in New Mexico, with a mushroom cloud blooming like a horrific flower. Manhattan Project scientists watched in awe and terror as the first atomic bomb detonated. Some celebrated. Others wept. The world changed in an instant. The weapon was small, in a sense, 2 bombs in all, but the promise it held was infinite, total, indiscriminate destruction. By 1949, the Soviets had their own bomb. The Americans, who had held the ultimate power for 4 short years, were no longer alone. A new concept began to circulate in military halls and government offices: deterrence. It was simple, terrifying, and paradoxical. If both sides knew that any attack would lead to a retaliatory strike, then no one would strike. Mutual assured destruction was born. A promise written in blood and fire: we may end you, but you would end us too. It was a doctrine that demanded perfect calculation, total composure, and the kind of trust no human being is naturally equipped to feel. On deck, the destroyer's crew doesn't think in doctrines. They think in sweat, in cold metal, in the thrum of the engines under their feet. Below the water, the Soviet sub waits, torpedoes loaded, silent. Its captain, Vasily Arkhipov, feels the weight of the world pressing down on his chest. Hours ago, his superiors had lost contact with Moscow. Their communications are dead. In their minds, war might already have begun. The orders are chilling: if attacked, retaliate with everything you have. Arkhipov stares at the instruments. The American destroyers are dropping depth charges, not to sink him, but to signal, to prod, to intimidate. Each explosion shakes the hull, each echo vibrates in his bones. His men panic. They think they are under attack. They shout for permission to fire, to launch nuclear torpedoes. One decision stands between them and total annihilation. One human choice. Arkhipov breathes. Long, deliberate breaths. He thinks of home. He thinks of his country. And then he makes a choice that no one can overstate. He refuses to authorize a nuclear strike. He chooses to wait. To survive. Archipov's calm is not a miracle. It is the result of a system designed to make the unthinkable understandable. Nuclear deterrence is not about who is stronger in the moment. It is about psychology, about perception, about the unyielding certainty of retaliation. The doctrine assumes 3 truths. Any nuclear attack will provoke a response of equal or greater magnitude. Leaders are rational actors. They want to survive as much as anyone else. The threat of total annihilation is the ultimate restraint. Yet these truths are fragile. Miscommunication, miscalculation, or fear can break them. That is what made October 1962 so terrifying. A single moment of panic could trigger a chain reaction, a cascade leading to the obliteration of cities, nations, and cultures. Deterrence is a delicate dance on a razor's edge. Every order, every signal, every movement of ships and submarines must be perfectly measured. And humans, by their nature, are imperfect. The destroyer's deck is slick with sweat. A sailor shivers, not from cold, but from a nameless terror. The blip below grows larger, more defined. The tension is unbearable. Archipov's sub trembles with every depth charge. His crew looks at him, eyes wide with fear and pleading. The lieutenant whispers to himself again, one move, one misstep, and it's over. Above water, American commanders are equally tense. They do not know the Soviet submarine is armed with nuclear torpedoes. To them, it is just another enemy vessel, but the rules of engagement are razor-thin. Ships inch closer. Radios buzz. Every second stretches into an eternity. Somewhere, in the command center of the Pentagon, analysts are reviewing satellite photos, calculating strike ranges, imagining destruction. Cities like Washington, New York, and Moscow exist only as targets on a map. And yet, no one fires. Because Arkhipov refuses. Because a single human being chooses patience over panic. This moment, terrifying as it was not unique. After World War II, strategists obsessed over two questions: how do you stop a nuclear war? And how do you survive one if it begins? The first answer was deterrence: build enough weapons that no one dares attack. The second answer was civil defense: bomb shelters, evacuation plans, drills. Cities practiced duck and cover, families stored cans of beans and water. The third answer was communication: hotlines between Washington and Moscow, protocols for early warning, and strict command hierarchies. Each solution carried its own peril. Too many weapons meant the stakes were impossibly high. Too few, and deterrence failed. Miscommunication could ignite the fire. The world was balancing on a needle, and every human decision mattered. The destroyer's deck is tense. A sailor sweats through his uniform. The submarine below rocks violently as another depth charge explodes nearby. Arkhipov's hands are steady on the control panel. He feels the weight of history pressing down, a weight that no human being should bear. Hours pass. Each one feels like a lifetime. The blip on sonar is still there. It is quiet now. Suspiciously quiet. Then a crackle over the radio. Orders come down: stand down. Return to normal depth. Relief floods the sub like a physical wave. Crew members collapse, laughing, crying, shaking. A nuclear war has been averted, not by missiles, not by treaties, but by the disciplined restraint of a single man. Cuban Missile Crisis is the ultimate proof of deterrence in action. It is a stark illustration of its beauty and its terror. Since then, the world has avoided a full-scale nuclear conflict. Deterrence shaped decades of geopolitics. The arms race, as each nation built enough weapons to ensure retaliation. The Cold War standoff, where proxy wars were fought instead of direct confrontation. The careful diplomacy that prevented crises from spiraling. Yet the system remains fragile. Every day, decisions are made by humans, under pressure, with lives hanging in the balance. The rules of deterrence have never been fully tested in the chaos of actual war, only in crises. The Cuban Missile Crisis remains a reminder: nuclear weapons are not just tools. They are moral and psychological traps, weighing the fate of the world on the choices of a few. By the afternoon, the destroyer has returned to routine patrol. The submarine submerged, heading back to Soviet waters. The ocean looks the same, deceptively calm. But the men on deck, and the men below, are forever changed. They have stared into the abyss, and the abyss has stared back. Arkhipov's restraint did not make headlines. His name is largely unknown outside military history circles. But his choice prevented an unimaginable catastrophe. The sailor on the destroyer, still trembling, whispers into the wind, "We came so close." Too close. Because nuclear weapons are not just tools of war. They are tools of human judgment, human restraint, human fear. One decision, 1 second, 1 breath can determine the survival of millions. But deterrence is not static. The weapons have evolved. The strategies have evolved. The world of 1962 was frightening enough. But what happens when machines, missiles, and second strike capabilities multiply beyond human control? What happens when deterrence becomes more about technology than judgment? In the next part, we will follow the chilling evolution of nuclear deterrence, from Cold War brinkmanship to modern-day threats, exploring how humanity continues to dance on the edge of annihilation, and what happens when the edge itself begins to tremble. January 31st, 1995. A cold winter morning in Moscow. Air alarms shriek across a silent military complex. Soldiers sprint across icy tarmac, clutching envelopes stamped with the word "top secret." Inside a command bunker, officers stare at a blinking screen. A missile launch has been detected. Dozens of eyes widen, breaths catch in throats. Every protocol designed over decades surges into action. Phones ring, codes are checked, transmissions verified. The world holds its breath. The blip is false. A stray weather satellite misread, a technical error. But for 20 terrifying minutes, the planet teetered on the edge. It is a reminder, decades of deterrence, of treaties, of protocols, do not erase human fear. The story of nuclear deterrence did not end with the Cuban Missile Crisis. It evolved. In the 1960s and 1970s, both superpowers embarked on an unprecedented arms race. Minuteman missiles were buried in silos across the American plains, ready to launch within minutes. SS-18s and other intercontinental ballistic missiles dotted the Soviet Union, pointing silently at U.S. cities. Each side built second strike capabilities, the guarantee that even if your cities were destroyed, you could retaliate. Submarines became mobile fortresses. Nuclear-powered, hidden beneath the ocean, capable of launching warheads from anywhere. Deterrence was no longer abstract. It was mechanized. Cold, precise, terrifyingly effective. October 1983. A night in the Russian early warning station. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov monitors screens that flash with red lights. Alarms ring. A U.S. missile has apparently been launched. Heart racing, Petrov follows procedure. The world might be ending in seconds. But something feels off. Only a few missiles. Something doesn't add up. He doubts the system. He trusts his judgment over the machine. He decides not to escalate. The blip was a false alarm. A technical glitch. Millions of lives are spared because one man trusted his instincts. Deterrence works, but it always depends on human judgment. And humans are fallible. Meanwhile, the United States refines its own strategies. Silos, bombers, and submarines are integrated into a vast network. Early warning radars scan the sky, satellites orbiting above track any movement. Missile crews train relentlessly. Drills simulate worst-case scenarios. Decisions are rehearsed, protocols drilled into muscle memory. Every move is designed to prevent the unthinkable, to ensure that if conflict ever comes, retaliation is guaranteed, and therefore no one dares to strike. And yet, the tension never disappears. The balance is delicate. One computer glitch, one misinterpreted radar blip, one rash decision, could ignite the very war that deterrence is supposed to prevent. By the late 1980s, the Cold War begins to thaw. Treaties like START and INF reduce the number of deployed weapons, but the shadow of annihilation lingers. Political leaders negotiate, sign, and promise. Analysts calculate throw weight, blast radius, and fallout patterns. But beneath every paper and handshake is the unspoken truth: the world still rests on the choices of a few. Technology grows faster than trust. Missiles become faster, more accurate. Guidance systems improve. Submarine stealth increases. The edge of the razor becomes sharper. August 1991. A coup in Moscow. The world watches as tanks roll through streets, government buildings surrounded. Communications are cut. The Soviet nuclear arsenal is under threat. For hours, the world fears that political instability might trigger an accidental launch. Leaders in Washington and NATO wait, hearts pounding, calculating. The doctrine of deterrence is stress-tested by chaos, not war. The missiles do not launch. The world exhales. It is a pattern that repeats: crises, misjudgments, near misses. Deterrence works because no one wants it to fail. And yet, every time it is tested, the margin for error shrinks. The 21st century brings new complications. Nuclear weapons are no longer the exclusive domain of superpowers. Smaller states acquire them. Unstable governments, rogue actors, and non-state threats introduce uncertainty into a system designed for rational actors. Missiles can be mobile, hidden, unpredictable. Cybersecurity becomes a new battlefield. A hacked early warning system could spark disaster without a single missile launch. The edge that once seemed stable now wobbles. Artificial intelligence and automated command systems are being integrated into strategic planning. Computers now calculate first strike probabilities, response times, and target selection. The human element, once the key to restraint, is being supplemented, and in some cases replaced, by algorithms. And yet, the fundamental truth remains: nuclear deterrence only works if someone, somewhere, has the courage to hesitate. Imagine a missile silo in the American Midwest. An alert flashes. The system identifies a potential threat. The crew prepares. Seconds matter. Decisions are compressed into heartbeats. Above them, satellites orbit silently. Below, protocols hum through fiber optics. A single operator might have the ability to trigger retaliation. Outside, the world continues, unaware of the invisible drama playing out. This is the reality of modern deterrence: invisible, mechanical, but entirely dependent on the human mind. And then there is the political chessboard. Every treaty, every diplomatic meeting, every public declaration is part of the balance. A nation that overstates its strength invites countermeasures. A nation that understates its resolve risks miscalculation. Leaders negotiate, bluff, threaten, and reassure. They perform a careful dance, knowing that misstep could mean not just defeat, but obliteration. Every press conference is loaded with stakes beyond comprehension. Every handshake carries the weight of millions of lives. Deterrence is diplomacy armed with annihilation. And still, the public rarely perceives the fragility beneath. Cultural memory fades. People forget the terror of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the alarms of 1995, the near misses of political instability. They see missiles as tools, weapons, or news headlines. Rarely do they see the human restraint, the judgment calls, the fear, the courage that keep the world from ending every day. Because deterrence is not just physics. It is psychology. It is morality. It is the unflinching understanding that survival is possible only if you never act rashly. Every decade adds complexity. The Cold War is over, but nuclear weapons remain. New states acquire them. Old arsenals modernize. Delivery systems improve. Missiles become faster, submarines more stealthy, satellites more precise. Artificial intelligence begins assisting in threat assessment. Simulations of nuclear war can be calculated in seconds. The margin of error narrows. The edge sharpens. And yet, human restraint continues to hold. Because no algorithm can feel hesitation. No computer can weigh the lives of millions. Deterrence is ultimately a human story, written on the backdrop of machines and technology. Imagine, again, a silent submarine beneath the ocean. The crew is trained, disciplined, aware of their responsibilities. Every movement is monitored. Every decision carries weight beyond comprehension. And above them, satellites and radar systems track everything. In bunkers, command centers, and war rooms, humans interpret data, analyze possibilities, weigh consequences. It is a fragile ballet of technology and judgment. One mistake, one panic, and the consequences are unimaginable. Nuclear deterrence is not static. It is not guaranteed. It is a living system, evolving with politics, technology, and human understanding. It demands vigilance, courage, and restraint. It demands empathy, the ability to imagine the consequences of annihilation before acting. The men and women who maintain it, from submarine crews to commanders, from diplomats to scientists, hold the world's fate in their hands. Every decision, every hesitation, every choice matters. They are the quiet custodians of survival. And yet, the stakes remain the same as they were in 1945. A single miscalculation, a single panic, a single moment, and the world could end. The story of nuclear deterrence is the story of humanity balancing on the edge of the abyss. It is the story of Arkhipov in 1962, of Petrov in 1983, of countless unsung individuals whose judgment prevented catastrophe. It is the story of the systems we have built to make annihilation unthinkable, and the moral, psychological, and technological challenges that come with them. It is the story of power, fear, and restraint. And it is not over. Because as long as nuclear weapons exist, the edge remains. The danger remains. The need for human judgment, courage, and restraint remains. The world may sleep, may live in oblivion, but it is only by the choices of a few that it continues to exist. One decision. 1 second. 1 breath. That is all it takes to decide whether life continues or ends. The balance holds, for now. But history whispers a warning: the edge is real, and it is thin. And somewhere, in the cold depths of oceans, in the silence of bunkers, and in the minds of leaders, the quiet question lingers. When the next crisis comes, will humanity hesitate, or act?